1861. The fiery passion that built our nation now tears it apart. The states shedding blood over the people they built this nation with. The framers of our country weeping for us beyond the grave. 4 years of absolute mania over the identity of our nation. The Confederate and Union armies both fought and lost a plethora of men. We all know the Union won, but what people don't as often know is that not all of these deaths were from straight wounds, and the blood lost from the wounds. But then what else could have killed all these men if not just their injuries? To answer that question, you would have to look carefully at what really happened at these battles. Imagine with me for a minute about the last battle of the war, the Battle of Bentonville. The final stance of the war came as William Sherman made his march through the Carolinas after the fall of Atlanta. The Union was closing in, and time was of the essence. The 60,000 Union men started their march from Savannah, Georgia, in January of 1865. By February, they made it to South Carolina, and soon after followed the fall of the city of Columbia on February 17th, giving them the morale they needed to drive on to North Carolina, entering North Carolina's borders in the early days of March. Their march was almost complete as they had made plans to meet up with Lieutenant General Ulysses S. Grant. Word, however, had reached Confederate General Robert E. Lee, who then assigned General Joseph Johnston to stop Sherman's forces from entering Virginia. Johnston rallied a force of roughly 20,000 men to attempt to stop Sherman's pursuit. Early in the morning, on March 19, 1865, Johnston attacked Sherman's left wing. The offensive attack worked well up into the afternoon when the Union pulled together a strong enough defense to stop the Confederates from advancing much farther. The battle continued raging on, and the other half of Sherman's army arrived on the second day. On the third day of fighting, despite Sherman's orders not to attack the Confederates, one of his generals, Mower, ignores orders and pushes forward, causing Johnston's men to fall behind and retreat to Mill Creek Bridge towards Smithfield, burning the bridge behind them. What is left of Sherman's army goes to burn and destroy much around where the battle took place. Johnston soon realized that there was not much else he could do, especially after hearing word of the surrender of Lee's forces in Virginia. Sherman and Johnston arrange a meeting at Bennett Place to negotiate surrender. In the end, Johnston surrenders over 89,000 men of the Confederacy and the remaining land in their possession, making the Bennett Place surrender the largest surrender of the war. During and after the Battle of Bentonville, the house that belonged to John and Amy Harper was occupied as a hospital. In the house, they treated over 500 Union soldiers and 54 Confederate soldiers. The Confederates were left in the family's care as prisoners of war, but by the time they had recovered, the war was over, and most had to find their own means of a way home. The house was later sold to the Dunn family, who had it up until the 1950s when they donated it to the state as a historical landmark. We were fortunate enough to be able to visit the site ourselves and look inside of the Harper House building. So we're here entering the Harper House, which was used as a hospital during the Civil War for the Union soldiers. They had 3 priorities. They had first priority, which were major wounds that could likely be treated. Second priority, which were smaller wounds that you would likely survive. And third priority, which was where you were so wounded, it was believed even with medical treatment, you likely would not survive. They put the first priority people into this room over here. This was the first priority room where amputations took place. They had so many amputations that they discarded of the dismembered limbs outside of the large windows. After your amputation was complete, you had to keep moving. They had over 500 soldiers to treat. So after your amputation was done, you would be moved to the back so they could get more soldiers in. Over to the second priority room across the hall. This is the next room that treated second and third priority soldiers. This is also the only room in the Harper House that has a confirmed human blood stain from 1865. After being treated in this room as well, Just like the first priority people, you would be moved to the back of the house whether you had survived treatment or not, and you were left out there to finish recovering with the rest of your comrades. Although the nurses did their best, all of these patients were treated without any type of sanitation or cleanliness on any of the tools. They were moving the soldiers fast, which means they had no time to clean their tools, nor did they know about the risk of not cleaning their tools. There was, however, plenty of anesthetic involved. Over 95% of treated people in the Civil War were available anesthetics to them. Starting to move towards the back of the house, while most of the soldiers were left to go recover outside, if you were an officer or above, you were allowed to stay inside and recover inside the house. While not being much better than outside conditions, there are reports on the last day of fighting in Bentonville that there was heavy rain. So if you were being treated in this room or recovering in this room, you would at least not have been rained on. While soldiers were being pushed in and out of the house, John and Amy Harper, with their 6 children and their 2 grandchildren, lived upstairs while having to listen to the horrors that happened inside of their house. During the battle, they had 6 miners living inside the house, who all crammed together in one room to comfort each other. Even after the war, there were 54 Confederate soldiers left in the care of the Harper family, who stayed for a considerable time, with the last one leaving on July 30th. Not only were a lot of lives lost to injuries, but they were also lost to the little knowledge we had on the germ theory during medical practices of the war. By the time we realized, it was too late. Of the 54 soldiers that were left after the battle was done, over half of them succumbed to their injuries or died from improper sanitation and got infections from their treatment at the Harper House. This showed us a lot throughout the war about our medical treatments. Despite the numerous amount of casualties, they are not forgotten, and through them we continue to learn more and get the experience needed so we are knowledgeable enough to never face a tragedy like this ever again.